Aloha and welcome to tonight's Lahaina Community Webinar. I'm Stephanie Nakosoni Ramsey, the Public Information Officer for the Office of Recovery. Just wanted to go over, as always, a few simple housekeeping things going on with the platform you're seeing here on Zoom. The Q&A box at the bottom of the screen is where you can submit questions. You can submit questions at any time, but we will be holding any sort of Q&A to the end of the presentations for tonight. And the chat has been disabled, I believe, for people, but I believe we should have our hosts and for our, myself or panelists to send out important like email or websites that may not be part of our presentations for you to all see a little bit easier. If not, we can kind of work around that somehow, but that's how some information may be shared through the chat there. So I think we can move on to our first announcement. Next slide, please. So we wanted to remind everyone about the fire debris transfer that's going to be going on. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about this. It's expected to begin in July. Trying to shoot for June, my apologies, June, trying to shoot for June 1st, when the debris will be moved from the temporary site in Olowalu to the permanent site in central Maui. The work is expected to be ongoing for 5 months, and trucks will be moving debris 7 days a week during daylight hours. Once en route, the trucks are not to make any stops, so it should be moving traffic, but it'll be kind of slower than usual traffic, most likely. So when you're traveling to and from West Maui during this time, I just want to remind everyone to give yourself some extra time. And if you can help spread the word on this, it'd be really great. I want to thank a few of you I saw at the NEMA Expo on Saturday. I was pleasantly surprised that most people who came to talk to us about this had already kind of known about it. So when they came to our table, they're like, oh yeah, we know about it. And they, to varying degrees of how much they knew about it, but hey, that means the word's getting out there. And I thank those of you who have already shared this information, and if you can continue sharing that out. Next slide, please. And this is the most updated map. This is on Maui Recovers right now, so you can take a better look at it. But that red route there is the preferred route, the primary route that the trucks will be using. Is pretty much the map that we've shared before, but a little bit more detailed. It has a couple of alternative routes that may be used in case of emergency, or maybe weather prevents the use of the former Cane Hall roads, starting from Waiko Road. That's where the Cane Hall roads will be utilized. So again, you can find this map over at myrecovers.org/debris transfer, and that QR code will take you directly to that page. Next slide, please. And going into our agenda tonight, a pretty packed agenda. We'll get an update on the current work from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as well as from the Department of Environmental Management. We'll have sewer updates, as well as the TDS, temporary debris storage site, environmental monitoring quarterly report. And from the Office of Recovery, we'll have updates on the CDBG-DR action plan revisions. And from Hawaiian Electric, a presentation on their wildfire safety strategies. Next slide, please. I see Mayor was able to log on, and I will turn things over to Mayor Bisson at this time.
Hey, aloha. Can you hear me okay, Steph?
Yep, I can hear you great.
Okay, yeah. I can't see since all I see is the thing that's on right now that says me. Okay, first of all, I just want to say aloha to everyone for joining us. I did want to make a couple of comments before we started. You're going to hear later an update on our CDBG-DR program. You'll hear from John Smith, I know, and maybe Patience will be on too. Our draft action plan is going to be submitted to HUD very soon. So we just want to make sure that our team continues to have discussions with you about what it is that you would like to give input on. Now, we've accepted all that has been submitted, by the deadlines, so that we again could stay on time by getting our action plan into HUD for their review, so that we can get back. Hopefully, good news from them. They'll tell us if we have to make any changes or if it's accepted as is. And then, of course, we can move on to the funding piece and then start to do implementation. The other thing I want to say, and I hope I'm not stealing his thunder, he's going to be on this a little later, is Shane Agawa from Environmental Management. And I will leave all the thank yous to Shane. There are a lot of people to thank, and I want to leave that to him. But I just want to make an announcement that with the help of USACE, the Army Corps of Engineers, they were able to activate the wastewater system from the Kilohana project. They tested it out over this past weekend, and the weekend prior, I should say. And then Friday, April 11th, the Fleming Road Sewer System Project came online. And so what that's doing, that system is allowing us to connect to the county sewer system, in particular to wastewater pump number 3. By tying that in, this should allow, or will allow, the activation of the sewer service for the remaining 62 lots in the Wahikuli Terrace subdivision. So again, excellent news. What that also means is we are at 100% of our sewer service activation now that that's happened. So lots of people to thank. I will leave that to Shane. I'm just going to thank Shane for his leadership over at the Department of Environmental Management for getting that done. And again, I hope that will assist those 62 lots and landowners who are looking to have sewer systems so they can get started on their rebuild as well. Or at least connect if they've already rebuilt and connected to the sewer system. So that's all I had for my part tonight. And again, just thank the panel and our partners for being here tonight. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you, Robinson. We will, next slide, please. And now we'll have Pat Fung from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to give an update on their work.
Hey, Steffi, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, evening, I guess, for everybody. I just want to take the opportunity to thank the County of Maui and also the staff, the mayor, for your leadership and partnership in accomplishing some of our goals. Just a couple of updates. Good news on the piling project that's going on right now. Can we show the pictures, Steph? Okay, so this is what we have done already the last few weeks. And what you're seeing here is block 800. Block 800 is where Cheeseburgers in Paradise used to exist. So on top right there is what you will see where we started from. The bottom right is what we finished with. And of course, on the left is the work in progress. So we're happy to say that we are 100% done with block 800. And we are actually working in block 700 right now. And we're about 90% completed. Originally, we had scheduled the piling project to be completed in May, but the contractor made such good progress and we didn't encounter any different site conditions along the shoreline there that we are anticipating the completion to finish end of this month, which is April, about 30 days ahead of schedule. So that's great news. That's also a reflection of collaboration, partnership with the state, the county, and all the employees that worked on this great project. The next update I want to provide is the housing mission that we're working on. We're working on 6 private sites right now. We've got about two will be done tomorrow, and the 6 private sites will be finished, I would say about mid-May. On the microsites, which account for about 44 units, that is still in design. We anticipate the construction to start in May. And overall, we should finish the microsite, which is 44 units, by about July 15 at the latest. Barring any questions, that's the progress from the Corps of Engineers. Over.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. That's really awesome news. Thank you. Next slide. Oh, and we're going over to Director Shana Gao, Department of Environmental Management.
Hi, everybody. Shane Agawa, Director of Environmental Management. Tonight, I'll be giving a brief update on our wastewater activation, and then I'll follow that up with a report out of the TDS monitoring as part of the Bill 120 requirements. Next slide. This is the latest update of our sewer system in Lahaina. On the left are the remaining lots, 62 lots that Mayor mentioned earlier. On the right, you can see those lots are now activated. I'd just like to, as Mayor mentioned, just give a special thanks out to USACE, who worked hard on the Fleming Road project. They completed that recently. The lines passed inspection and was operational, which allowed these 62 lots to tie in. And this is in the Wahikuli Terrace subdivision. Next slide, please. And as Mayor said, as of today, big news for everybody. And I'm proud to say that we are at 100% sewer activation for all of Lahaina. That's, over 3,500 parcels now have sewer. There has been some questions regarding the residents on Fleming Road and them tying into the Fleming Road system that Army Corps and their contractor built. The county is working to get that to be allowed. We're working with Army Corps and our court counsel, and we will be updating you once we have a determination on when and how that can be done. And just a note that the homeowners, you need to construct the clean out on your property if your clean out was destroyed or damaged during the fire, and it should be constructed 2 feet in. With respect to Fleming Road, Army Corps located the cleanouts 2 feet on the roadway side. So when you rebuild, you would have to construct the cleanout 2 feet on your side of the property and then connect to the existing lateral that Army Corps left. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Before we get to this slide, I just want to give some special thanks. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Bisson for his support and his trust in DEM to get to the point where we can get 100% sewer activation. I'd also like to thank our wastewater administration, our project managers, our engineers. They worked hard to get the damage assessment done, work with EPA. They worked with our consultants, and they got the contract for the repairs out in expedited fashion. So hats goes off to them. I'd also like to give special thanks to our wastewater collections personnel who completed many of the in-house sewer line repairs, and they also CCTV'd the lines that EPA could not do, which is about 8,000 linear feet of sewer line they inspected with CCTV. So thank you to our wastewater collections crew. I also want to thank our wastewater reclamation facility personnel, our personnel who's out there at the treatment plant in Lahaina, who kept the treatment plant operational during the challenging times. For those of you who do not know, soon after the fire, we had issues with our treatment process, and they worked hard to keep that process going, and we did not lose the plant. So hats off to our crew out there at the Lahaina treatment facility. I want to say thanks to our consultants who helped with the assessment, the damage assessment of our sewer line in Lahaina. Again, it was about 98,000 linear feet of sewer line. They came out with the report, which guided us to get us to the point where we could contract out the repairs. I'd also like to thank our contractor, MoCon, who worked hard to complete the majority of the sewer repairs in Lahaina. They did a lot of the larger repairs that our in-house crew could not do due to limited resources, limited equipment, that type of things. So hats off to MoCon. I'd also like to thank EPA. As I mentioned before, EPA stepped up and helped us to clear the debris from the sewer lines and to CCTV inspect over 90,000 linear feet of damaged sewer lines. Without their resources and their support, we could not have gotten to this point of restoring all the sewer back in Lahaina. So thank you to the EPA. I know I'm going to forget a lot of people. I'd just like to thank our state and federal partners, who helped us and supported us The county really appreciates all of your support along the way and your guidance. But most of all, I just like to thank all the residents of Lahaina for your patience and your understanding. You know, it took a long time. We worked hard, but we got to the point where we got the sewer service restored. So I just want to thank all of you, my fellow friends, my family, my acquaintances. Just thank you for your patience and allowing us to do our work. Okay, and now to the TDS sampling and monitoring. This is, as I mentioned, part of the requirements of Bill 120. We are required to report out the monitoring data every quarter, every 90 days. So this report out is for the quarter of January to April, and this is the 5th report out. Next slide. Again, Bill 120, and the latest update is today. Next slide. You can find a lot of the data and the records and the documents associated with the TDS data monitoring on MauiRecovers.org. And they'll always be there for your record and for your review. Next slide. Part of the requirements was to report on air quality monitoring. We continue, our Army Corps and their contractor continues to monitor the air quality. On the right, you can see the levels, action levels, and they remain safe and below any levels of concern. Next slide. They also continue to monitor leachate. Due to little rainfall, there has been little leachate generated. I believe there's hardly any leachate in the containment basin. Next slide. This is just some of the chemicals that we're monitoring for in the leachate. You folks have seen a lot of this before, so I won't go through all of them. Next slide. This is, again, the leachate monitoring basin. As you can see, there's hardly any leachate in there. The last sample was taken on February 3rd, and that was for this 5th quarterly report. And the level is less than a foot, around 4,000 gallons in the basin. And that was of yesterday. Next slide. Stormwater. This is a concern. Army Corps and their contractor implemented BMP practices along to mitigate any type of stormwater concerns. To date, there has been no leachate released and no any chemicals entering into the stormwater due to the BMPs. And they continue to monitor and manage the BMPs even till today. Next slide, please. Another requirement was groundwater monitoring. The latest sample occurred on February 8th, and to date, there has been no suspected or potential impacts to groundwater. So in other words, no leachate has been released from the site or the pond and entered into groundwater. Next slide. And this is just information. You can use the QR code. It takes you to the Maui Covers website under debris containment, and there you can find all the documents that I reported on and more. There's all the different past quarterly reports, 1 through 4. There's Bill 120, and there's also the monitoring data that you can find there. Next slide. And this is a QR code that you can use to get to DOH's data portal. On that portal, you can see real-time data on air monitoring, ash debris, all different types of data. So if you're interested, you can check out the DOH's data portal. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Yep, now we'll move over to Office of Recovery with Administrator John Smith.
Hi, folks. John Smith here. Thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you for all the panelists that are here here to help answer questions. Great job, Shane and team. That was awesome. I love to see 100% And then thanks USACE too for all the hard work on the shoreline. The beach really looks nice, so appreciate your guys' work. Let's jump into an update for CDBG-DR. So yeah, we can go to the next one. I think most of you have heard us present what CDBG-DR is, what the action plan is, but just real quick, the county was awarded $1.6 billion in funding through HUD for primarily for housing. It is for recovery. It has to comply with all the HUD regulations, and we've talked about that for months now. We are incorporating all of your feedback into the action plan. So we're going to talk about that this evening and how that impacts the plan. We are still shooting to submit the plan the 21st, so we just have a few days. We are pushing hard, and all the staff is working nonstop to make the changes to the plan that we need to, so that we can get a plan that's approvable by HUD. I just want to note that, you know, 1.6 billion sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. The CDBG-DR program is not the only funding source for recovery, so we are continuing to seek other funding sources through the federal government and other sources that where CDBG-DR may not fit. DR again is that gap funding measure. So next slide. So top comments, let's go through them. Affordable housing is a priority, 100% agree. We saw that comment over and over. Make sure local residents are prioritized, 100% agree. Impacted households will be prioritized and are in the plan. This one is, we heard this one a lot too. Households make more than that 80% AMI, but they still need assistance. We understand, we agree. And like I said in the previous slide, we are continuing to work with other partners and other sources to fill gaps that maybe DR can't fill. And we're also pushing HUD really hard to be as flexible as we can with this fund. So we're working with them right now. So the check mark is, yes, it's in there, agreed. The question mark is really, we're working through that comment to make it as close as we can to meet all the needs of the community. Will the county reimburse people who have already started to rebuild? We got that question a lot. So we have included language in the action plan, the proposed action plan, that eligible applicants may be considered for reimbursement for rebuilding homes. So we can talk more about that in just a little bit. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, when I say LMI, this is what LMI means. This one hasn't been updated yet. This is 2024. 2025 will come out likely before the eligibility requirements start. But this is the chart when we say LMI that we're referring to, just as a reminder. Thanks, Steph. Thanks, Jen. So what we heard was from both HUD and from folks that comment on the housing programs was we needed to make it a little bit more clear what these programs are. So we went from 3 programs in the original draft. So now you're going to see 4 programs. That doesn't mean that we didn't have 4 programs to start with. It's just we've broken it up in the plan more administratively so it's easier to follow. So that new housing opportunity for disaster impacted renters, we now have this multifamily rental housing new construction, and then we have a single family first time home buyer opportunity. So we popped that out as its own separate thing to make it a little bit more clear what we were trying to go for. So you'll see a lot of that in the revised plan where we clarified where maybe it wasn't as clear as it should have been in the original version. Go ahead to the next slide. This is how those 4 categories break down in terms of cost. We thought we'd show that that breakout. So about $300 million for single family homeowner reconstruction, $235 for multifamily rental housing reconstruction. And then the new construction for multifamily, $185 million, and that first time home buyer program, $185 million. So that's how the dollars work out in the action plan. Just as a reminder, this is basically what I just said, that, you know, we split the new housing opportunities for renters just to provide clarity. We heard a lot of comments about parking. We've talked about it publicly multiple times. So we added parking under our mitigation measures so that we'd have funds there to help with that issue. We did add that reimbursement option, and we're exploring opportunities with HUD right now on including ADUs as an eligible expense. We can talk about more about that in the future, but we are the things that we're adding into the proposed action plan are directly from your comments, just to make sure that we open the door enough that we can develop programs that meet those needs. And again, when we start doing eligibility later this summer, we encourage everyone to apply. Next slide. So yeah, parking needs to be addressed. Understood. DR funding, mitigation funds can be used to help with that need. A lot of people ask us to rebuild the harbor. That's under the state, and they do have plans to restore the harbor, but we'll continue to support and collaborate with them to expedite that restoration. But that's not something that's specific to the DR funding. Improve and increase water capacity. Yes, 100% agree. We need that for housing, and we do plan to use the DR funding for that purpose. Next slide. Undergrounding power lines. You know, Colton's here and he's going to talk about hardening in just a little bit from Hawaiian Electric standpoint. We don't take this as a no at all. We can use DR funding to help with this issue. We just can't directly fund a utility with DR funding, but we can, and we are working on ways to help with undergrounding, especially in the commercial areas that have that requirement to do so. That's the caveat in that response. Requesting the use of fire resistant materials, making our houses safer that we build. 100% yes, we can use the funds for that, and we do plan to. That's in the plan. Questions that can we use this money to help with things like fire breaks or to help with native plants and to improve fire safety? Yes, we can, and yes, that is in the plan. Here's another one that's complicated. A lot of folks ask us to just use the money to rebuild the bypass. We hear you loud and clear. That is a state project, that's a DOT thing, and it's a federal highways funded thing. But there may be opportunities for some limited gap funding from the DR program for that. So we're not saying that we can just use DR funding for the bypass, but in the future we can discuss that, and I'm sure it'll be a hot topic for a while to come. Next slide. Workforce training, 100%. We heard you, and in fact, we created a different pot just for this. So we've added an economic revitalization category. So we got lots of comments on this, and we talked to HUD about it. We made a new category and dedicated $15 million towards that issue. And then the other one is healthcare, mental health, homeless support services. Agreed. It's in the plan. It's under public services. But I want to talk a little bit about how it'll look in the plan next. I think let's go to the next slide. And if I'm going too fast, please type comments in. And I know Patience and I think Aaron's on here too. If I've missed something, feel free to correct me, guys. So we adjusted the public services number because originally we had planned to use the public services category to like build facilities. And we couldn't use that for that reason. So we're not saying that we're removing money. We're just moving money from public services into other pots of money. So from the public services money, and I'll show you this in a chart in a second, we're moving $50 million over to infrastructure because infrastructure is a much better fit for something like a Kapuna Center. So there's one move that you'll see in the plan. And then again, we had workforce development tucked under public services, but HUD felt it would be better for us to move that over to economic revitalization for 15 million. So let's look at that in a different way here in this next slide. So here, the original budget is on the left. You've all seen that. That was that pie chart from before. The new budget's on the right. And in reality, basically the same programs are funded. We just moved money from one program to another to meet the requirements of HUD. They came out with some really specific comments on the draft plan already because we'd worked with them on it. They said this would fit better here. So that's how that new budget change was made, and the thinking behind it, because we want to make sure the plan that we submit to HUD is approved. Next steps. So we are on track. Everybody's working hard to submit on the 21st. HUD has 45 days to review and approve. If they have comments that we'll have to jump into, we'll have 30 days to make revisions, and then we'll resubmit. Once we do that, and once we get final approval, then we start developing these programs in more detail, and then we start doing program intake. So I know that feels like it's going to take forever. Believe me, we are moving as fast as we can through the program. We are still projected to start intake in the summer. I think, is that the last slide? I think that's it, but that's a really quick update for you folks. Thank you for tuning in. If you have questions, we can answer them at the end, or you can submit questions as well. So we're going to continue to engage with the community as we develop this program and the programs. But for now, we've taken all the comments, we've put in them, we've addressed them. We are submitting the plan on the 21st, and then the clock starts ticking for HUD to get back to us. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll turn it over to the next presenter. Is it Hawaiian Electric? There we go. Colton, you're up.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. I'm Colton Ching. I'm from the Hawaiian Electric Company. I want to start off by thanking the County of Maui for giving us an opportunity to share with you the things we're doing with our safety strategy. Hopefully you'll find it informative, and like John mentioned, we'll be ready to answer any questions at the end of the agenda. So let me start off, and Jennifer, maybe if you can go to the next slide, please. So what is our wildfire safety strategy? So Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety strategy is a 3-year strategy that identifies the plans and actions that our company is going to be taking over the next 3 years. And those strategies were really built driving to achieve the greatest reduction in wildfire ignition risk caused from utility infrastructure, while balancing those investments we need to make against affordability and the reliability that we need to serve our customers. And so we made that careful balance, and we really maximized the amount of risk reduction by really focusing our work in areas of communities across the 5 islands that we serve, where we have the highest analyzed risk. And then we focus on the drivers, the things that drive those risks and make them higher, and focus to implement actions and change our operations so that risk gets reduced. We also did it by engaging with community members, government agencies, a lot of partners who informed us of what they've experienced, what they've seen, what they've learned over the years to make our plans and our strategies better. And then our strategy includes a regular annual review of what we're doing, and implementing those improvements as we collect data and learn lessons. We also wanted to make our plan and strategy transparent as we filed it with our state regulator. So our strategy includes estimates of costs and schedules of when we were going to be doing different things in our strategy. So very, very focused. Again, 3 years worth of plans established to really reduce wildfire risk across all 5 islands that we serve. Next slide, please. Now, as broad and comprehensive as we try to make our wildfire safety strategy, it's really focused on Hawaiian Electric risks and the risk of Hawaiian Electric infrastructure becoming a source of ignition that may lead into a fire of some kind. And there are a lot of things we're going to be talking about today, but it's all focused on this upper left-hand corner, just around ignition management, around utility infrastructure. As a community, we all have a role to play, and there are many things that ultimately impacts wildfire risk in all of our communities. Ignition management being a really important piece up in the upper left, but it also includes fuels management, which includes things like creating fire breaks and limiting the fuel loadings that can occur in different properties. It includes planning our different communities for better egress and ingress, fire codes, building codes that can reduce the ignitability of structures and then reduce the speed of fire spread, as well as things like fire suppression, right? The things you do that you can have in place to manage a fire when it does occur and reduce the impact to different areas and communities. So all of that together impacts and towards a reduction in wildfire risk to all of our communities. What I'm going to be covering over the next 15 minutes is really focused on Hawaiian Electric infrastructure in the top left quadrant. Next slide, please. So our strategy was organized around what we call 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are things that we're going to be doing over the next 3 years to harden and redesign our grid. That's the first pillar. The second is around expanding and improving our situational awareness of our infrastructure that's deployed across the entire state. The third is to improve our operational practice in how we operate our electric system, but also how we stand up operations so that we're more aware of what's happening in the environment with weather and other things. And then last but not least, the 4th pillar is around continuing to engage with our communities, with our stakeholders, with emergency agencies, with county and state partners to make sure that our plans are as good as it can be, and also to ensure that our plans and the actions that we take are coordinated with other organizations, government agencies, other utility owners as well. We want to make sure what we're doing is supportive and complementary to everyone else's plans. So those are the 4 pillars. So I'll spend a little bit of time going into them over the next several slides. Next slide, please. The first, as I mentioned, is to harden and redesign the grid. And this is probably the thing that people think about immediately. This includes things like upgrading our existing electric infrastructure, things like installing what's called covered conductors, electric wires that are insulated and protected against brushing of the ground or vegetation that could then potentially become an ignition source. It also includes undergrounding and then also replacing equipment that could, when in operation, cause a spark in its performance of its roles. On the right, you can see some pictures of undergrounded duct banks, some covered conductors there as well as more robust poles being installed that are much stronger and able to withstand much higher wind speeds. These hardening efforts also have the side benefit of improving reliability on the circuits that they're part of. So that's a double benefit that's associated with grid hardening. Next slide. The second pillar, as I mentioned, expanding and improving situational awareness. This includes the deployment of very unique new infrastructure, weather stations that are located directly on our poles, so we know exactly what kind of weather our lines and circuits are exposed to. There's an example of a picture on the right. We're also deploying video cameras so that we have view planes of our infrastructure in higher wildfire risk areas. These cameras have 360-degree view capability. They're augmented with artificial intelligence, so it can look for telltale signs of what may be a fire and then flag operators that are manning a facility 24/7 to investigate to determine indeed whether or not there is a smoke or a fire occurring. We're also going to be standing up, beginning this year, a watch office. And this is an office separate from our folks that operate the grid 24/7. But this watch office is going to operate 24/7 to look at the cameras, to man the weather, to do updated forecasts of weather, to understand what our infrastructure is supposed to, not just now, but in future periods of time, so we can adjust our operations to reduce those risks. And then last but not least, it includes what's called development of an operational wildfire risk model. So some of the leading electric utilities have the ability to, in a near real-time basis, provide updated wildfire risk models based upon weather conditions and field conditions that are being experienced out there, and forecast over the next hour or the next day or the next week what those conditions could be, so that we can best prepare and set up our system to deal with those kinds of events. Next slide. A big part of that work results in our ability to create updated wildfire risk maps. And so what we've done in developing the strategy, and really in part to make sure that we're achieving the greatest amount of wildfire risk as quickly as possible in our strategy, we took a step to take a lot of information, geographic data, historical fire data, historical and forecasted future weather conditions. We looked at the inventory of our assets, where they're located relative to prevailing wind directions and where our customers are located. And then we identified areas of each of our islands that have a higher, medium, and lower risk to having an ignition that could cause a wildfire. And so on the next slide, please, Jennifer. Here's what that effort to do wildfire risk mapping is for Maui County. So you can see in red for Maui and Molokai, the areas that the risk modeling identified higher levels or the highest level of wildfire risk and consequences. The yellow shows that medium risk areas, and then in gray are lowest risk areas. And it's not to say that fires can only occur in a high or medium area, but really this is developed to help us understand how we should best prioritize all of the work that we have planned over the years, so that we can maximize risk reduction as quickly as possible. Next slide. So I talked about cameras, I talked about weather stations. This just gives you a visual of where those weather stations and cameras are located. This is from a map from the end of 2024. And you can see that our weather stations are located in the areas that are noted in red across all 3 counties, because these are the circuits of greatest risk. We really want to make sure we know what's going on each of those circuits real time, so that we can make good decisions on how to operate the grid. And the cameras, some of them are within those risk areas, sometimes they're away from it. It's really there so that we have a good view of our infrastructure that's in high and medium risk areas. Okay, so here's an example of our weather station. This is a photo of a weather station on Oahu, but on the right, you can see an example, a real example of what a weather station is sensing and collecting and reporting. So this is from a weather station located on Lahaina Luna Road. This is real data. You can see in this case, wind speed and wind gusts, as well as wind direction. In this example, later on, I'll show you QR codes. This data is accessible by everyone. And if there's time, I can actually give you a demonstration of what that webpage looks like. Thank you. So these are examples of our AI cameras. Comes in slightly different forms. Sometimes they're mounted on poles in our substation. Sometimes they're mounted on poles out there in the field. Sometimes we have some portable ones located to fill in gaps where we don't have infrastructure or property to place a camera, and we place them in a location that's owned by someone else, and then we work in agreement with them to place a camera there. As you can see in that last photo of that portable station, they can be powered by solar, they can be powered by the grid. They all have battery backup, including the weather stations. So the cameras and the weather stations can operate even if there's an outage on that associated power line. Next slide. So some QR codes and web links to Alert West, which is our AI camera system, a QR code and web link to Synoptic, which is where our weather stations data is being inventoried and displayed. And then on the right, I haven't spoken to it, but this is a QR code and link to an app, a free app that anyone can download, Apple or Android. And the app called Watch Duty provides a lot of really important information for folks so they can get notified of any fire ignition that occurs within any designated area that they have or where they happen to be located. And as part of that, all of our cameras are on the Watch Duty app. So you can actually download the app, click on one of our cameras, and actually see what a camera is seeing. Next slide, please, Jennifer. The third pillar, improving operational practices. This includes things like EFT, which stands for Enhanced Fast Trip. Enhanced Fast Trip is these more sensitive and safer settings that we've deployed on our circuits in areas of highest wildfire risk, so those areas that were noted in red in that earlier map, as well as in areas noted in yellow in those map, in medium areas, where these settings are in place to more quickly shut off circuits if the circuit sensors detect a problem with the circuit. And the reason for these settings and the benefit of these settings is that by operating more quickly, it reduces the amount of electrical energy that gets transmitted to anything that might be touching one of our lines, regardless of what may be the cause, right? A tree branch brushing our line, a car hitting a pole, causing the pole to fall, conductors falling, whatever it may be, Mylar balloon from graduation, all of those things will be detected. The sensors shut off the circuits immediately and reduces the amount of energy that then can lead to an ignition, therefore reducing the risk and likelihood of ignition occurring in the first place. The other operational practice, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide, is public safety power shutoffs. And hopefully you all are familiar with that program, but it's an enhancement and even more proactive approach to improving safety to our customers in our highest risk areas in red, where when certain conditions of high threat to our circuits that could cause an ignition. And these conditions are persistent drought conditions where our weather stations are seeing wind gusts of 45 miles per hour higher, and where those weather stations are seeing locally in that circuit where relative humidity is below 45%. And if we exceed the thresholds for any one of our circuits in those red areas, then our incident commander, as part of our response, may make the decision to proactively shut off power to that circuit. And by proactively shutting off power to the circuit under those extreme conditions, very, very low humidity, very, very high winds, even if something were to contact our line, because they're de-energized, those lines cannot be a source of ignition, and we've eliminated the risk of a wildfire occurring as a result of something coming into contact with our lines. There's a lot of other things that are part of improving operational practices. There are things like enhancing our trimming of vegetation, accelerating the pace in which we do inspections of our assets. There were some images of that in the last slide. And then one of the neat things that we're doing today is really leveraging even more than before the use of aerial drones to assist us with that inspection work. And so now we have qualified drone operators as well as drones based on Maui, not just on the island of Oahu, that can assist our crews with doing these inspections, as well as assist us with doing field surveys to see if there's any damage following a windstorm. Next slide, please. Last but not least, the fourth pillar, strengthen our stakeholder and community partnership. We've been working at this for over a year now. It started over a year ago, where we held a symposium, bringing in folks from all over the state, utilities from across the mainland in Australia, wildfire experts from the universities, as well as in private industry and in government, to really share what are some of the risks and what are some of the best practices around reducing wildfire risks. And since then, since April of last year, we've conducted over 100 in-person and virtual meetings with partners, community groups, as well as the public at large, to share what we're doing, but also to get input on our plans to make our plans even better. And Jennifer, maybe if you can scroll over the next couple of slides, just here are some examples of really pretty folks from Hawaiian Electric participating in some of these meetings, and very enthusiastic and very open to hear and very appreciative of what folks have to say and input they provided. One thing before I end, just want to give a heads up. Sorry, Jennifer, back one slide, please. Just want to give folks a heads up. On May 3rd, which is a Saturday at Lahaina Intermediate, we're going to be holding a West Maui Emergency Preparedness Open House. We're going to be presenting there, but MEMA will also be presenting, MFD and HWMO, the Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization, which is a nonprofit that focuses on wildfire prevention and awareness. They'll be giving presentations, and there's going to be a lot of tables where you can interact with folks from all of these organizations that morning. So if you're free and available, I really encourage you to join us on May 3rd. And last slide. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. So just thank you, everyone. More information about our wildfire safety strategy can be found right on our website, hawaiianelectric.com/wildfire safety. It's my email address. It's my real email address. If any questions, any comments, any suggestions, send them over to me if we can't get through them tonight. And here are the same three QR codes that I showed earlier. Also added a fourth one, which is a brand new video that we just published that shows covers basically what I did tonight, but it has some really, really nice visuals to go along with it. And I'm pretty sure they presented it a lot better than I did tonight. So it's a good video to watch.
Hey, Colton, I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you say you could show us something if you had time?
I can. Yeah, if there's time, I can share with you.
If you can do it in 5 minutes, I think that would be great.
I can do that. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, can you guys all see the screen?
I can see it.
Okay. Okay, so here's an example of one of our weather cameras. And in this map in the middle of Maui, you can see all the locations that we have for, with our video cameras. I've selected here the Wailea camera, so it's kind of at the McKenna side of Wailea, and in this case, on the upper left, it's looking towards Kihei Malaya. On the bottom, you can see that 360 view that the camera also has. I'm showing you the Wailea McKenna camera because there actually was a fire earlier today in the afternoon that the camera did pick up. So I'll show you a short video loop. I think it covers a couple of hours where you can actually see that fire. So hopefully you guys can follow the video. So that was a pretty short fire. That fire was not related to Hawaiian Electric infrastructure, but these cameras can be used by anyone. On the right, you can see that Maui Fire actually took control of the camera. They zoomed in. You can see how initially the camera view was much zoomed out. They zoomed into where the AI initially picked up the smoke, and then could kind of focus in on the area. The folks from MFD and other county fire departments have told us it's been very helpful to them. I think MFD has probably been the greatest user of all the fire departments of our cameras. Helps them get situational awareness from locations other than right there on site. So it really helps in overall management of response. And of course, for our guys, it really helps us as we're looking at conditions out into the field. So this is an example of the cameras, and we could do it for all of the camera locations. In here, and I think you guys can still see the screen, this is a page that shows Hawaiian Electric's weather stations. So I picked just Hawaiian Electric's weather stations. This page actually shows weather stations from National Weather Service, from the University of Hawaii, and others as well. But here you can see I picked, I'll go back out, and you can see I'm picking the Lahaina Luna weather station right on Lahaina Luna Road. Is bringing up the latest, in this case, temperature, dew point, and relative humidity data. I can have it pick wind. It shows you wind most recently, wet bulb. Both the Alert West page for the cameras as well as this page for the weather stations. We use them, first responders use them, but anyone from the public can have access to these pages as well. So if you click on, or if you use a QR code, you too can take a look at it and peruse through these pages as well. So that was it, John, in terms of what to share.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing that live demonstration. Steph, back to you, I think.
Hi, yeah, so we're going to get started with Q&A. We did get a few pre-submitted questions. I want to thank those of you who did send in a few questions. I do want to note that HECO did receive a few of these questions that were directed to them that were pre-submitted, and they'll be, either they have been or they are going to reach out to you directly. I did want to mention that one of the questions for HECO was regarding the Reconnections progress map that I believe they shared at the last in-person community meeting, and they are working on getting that up on the HawaiianElectric.com website. Let me see here. Let me start with some of these questions. This is actually a question regarding the first-time homebuyer or homebuyer opportunity program. I had question was, how would they be able to apply? Who can they talk to? They want to see if their daughter could possibly qualify for that program.
I can start with that when patients can jump in. So we're really excited about the first-time homebuyer program that we're developing through CDBG-DR. We aren't ready to take intake yet. That'll happen in the summer. So what intake is just coming in to see if you qualify for that, which I'm sure that's the question. So we're looking at summer before we can start to have those discussions for the CDBG-DR first-time homebuyer program.
Thanks, John. Let me see here. This question is regarding solar. This question reads, solar water heaters are now required for residential rebuild. And they cite 196-6.5, but require extra plumbing, pumps, and roof reinforcement in addition to the expensive solar water heaters, and so are not financially practical compared to solar PV augmented normal electric water heaters. The variance program requires more hoops, long delays, and additional expense to hire a mechanical engineer to make a more common sense variance request. Is there any way to recognize that problem and expedite this issue for those that already are installing solar PV?
I don't know if anybody else on the panel can take that question. I can't answer it directly, but I definitely can take it up with our Public Works Department, and they're not on here this evening. So thank you for pointing that out. I understand exactly what you're asking, but I don't have an answer for you in terms of how we can make a little bit more common sense, but we will follow up on it.
Thanks, John. Let's see, next question. I believe this is from the same person. They actually had a couple of questions related to, let's see, overgrown weeds and such around different properties. They're asking what is the county doing about Bishop Estates, Camp School property weeds that started the fire that are now going back. Would 100% fine or worse for individual homes if we endanger the community? Would that be considered? How are the Mauka landowners not slapped with huge fines and then billed for preemptive county fire mitigation? Not sure if there's anyone on this panel who can address that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in again here. I don't see, I would want the fire department and MEMA to be here to answer that question, which they're unfortunately not here tonight. So I know that they're working on this, but I don't want to answer for them. It's a current operational issue that we would want them to answer, and we have invited them to come to one of our next community meetings. So we will make sure that they address that specifically, and we know that comment's been brought up in other community meetings. So thank you. Sorry they're not here tonight.
Yeah, I will say, John, they are set to be at the next in-person Lahaina community meeting on May 7th at Lahaina Intermediate.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's addressed at that meeting.
Thank you. And another question regarding planting, asking why aren't we replanting at least in public and historic spaces? In all these plans, can we include designated planting locations? The trees will take decades to shade Lahaina again, and we need to replant monkey pods, pine, crownflower, plumeria, ulu along Campbell Park, Prison, etc.
Yeah, understood. And the people that are working on those planting plans are not here tonight. I don't want to speak for them, but we understand the comment. We agree with you. I don't know if Jen wants to weigh in or not. She may know more than me, but yeah, I agreed. And we don't know it's going to take time. And we are supporting initiatives for plantings, both in town and public spaces and around town. So that's all underway.
All right. Thanks, John. All right. This question was from tonight in our Q&A box here. I know Director Blystone wanted to address it though to the whole group. There was a person asking about the status of Bill 105, a non-conforming bill.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the opportunity to answer this question, and thank you to the person who asked it, because this is something that we've been wanting to get out, and we just put out a press release this week or late last week on this subject matter. So Bill 105 was adopted as Ordinance 5780, which doesn't really matter to anyone. Now you just know that it's part of the code. And so what we're trying to do is get the word out about this particular bill, because if you had non-conforming uses on your property or non-conforming structures, you could be eligible for this bill. So if you want to rebuild what you had, you need to there's some ways you need to qualify. And so I've put in the answer to this question a link to a press release that has everything I'm about to say. But basically, in order to qualify, you need to provide evidence that the structure was legally non-conforming and existed before the wildfires. So that can come in the form of approved building permits, real property tax assessor records prior to the requirement of building permits, approved variances or similar documentation, all of which will be reviewed and can be submitted as evidence. So our team will take a look at those things and make sure that your building was non-conforming, legal non-conforming. We need to ensure that your repair, so if you're repairing a building or reconstructing completely, it does not increase the non-conformity. So it can't be different than it was before. It has to be the same. That you need to complete all work in compliance with applicable building and safety codes, right? So you have to meet modern building and safety codes, and that's critical. And then you have to have all of this complete by April 1st, 2029. Now, there is a provision to allow the director to grant you a 2-year extension. So that's a possibility as well. So if you can't complete it by 2029, that's an option, another thing. And you'll also have to comply with shoreline rules. So keep all of those things in mind. If you think you may qualify for this, or you just have more questions about it, you can feel free to give us a call at 270-7735, and I'll go ahead and put that in the answer as well, so that you can talk to us about whether or not your project qualifies for this new change in ordinance. And thanks, Steph, for giving me an opportunity to say that.
Awesome, thanks, Kate. Yeah, we just for everyone's awareness, we are also, I believe, on Akaku tonight. So I know some of those watching at home probably may not be able to see the questions that are answered through the Q&A box. But I want to thank our people behind the scenes who are being able to supply some of those answers, because it really does get us through a lot of these questions. Wanted to go on to a CDBG related question. Can any of the CDBG-DR healthcare funds be used to fund the proposed West Maui Critical Access Hospital?
Oh, hey, Steph, thanks for that question. The short answer is maybe. I know that that's not a definite yes or no. It's definitely, the action plan definitely is broad enough to include support and gap funding support for a healthcare initiative like that. So that's about as specific as I can be with the current action plan, but that's a hopeful maybe.
All right, thanks, John. Another question, I believe Kate will take this one, asking about, we read a letter from the DLNR chair advocating for Makai Front Street businesses to be able to rebuild. Has there been a change, and will Makai Front Street businesses and residents now be allowed to rebuild?
Yeah, mahalo for that question, everyone, and Stephanie for asking it too. So I can't speak to the position of the DLNR because that's not my area. It's up to them to speak to their position. But what I will say is there are a number of bills going through the legislature, and we're still in the legislative session now, that kind of address some concerns, but nothing that's been passed yet that would just outright allow whatever was built before to just go back the way it was. So there always has been, it's really important to keep this in mind, there's always been a path forward for all of these projects, whether you're Mauka or Makai. It's just that the process for those properties, Makai, especially the overwater structures, is more difficult. And so, these bills may address some of those concerns. They may not, and I hesitate to speak too much about them simply because they're still in process, and we don't know what the final signed bill will look like, or if some of these will even be passed. So it's important to keep in mind, keep your eyes on the legislature. But for the most part, the thing I wanted to say most is that there is a path forward. It's just in some cases very difficult, and we've done our best here at the county to make the path as straightforward as possible where we could. So we've done some of that, but that's the answer to that question. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, thanks, Kate. Let's see. This question is regarding the harbor, just came in. When will active access to the harbor be allowed by the county for both operators and customers?
I get all of them tonight, I think. So we're working with the DLNR and the harbors on a plan for access. Right now there is quite a bit of work remaining at the harbor. So they will ultimately dictate access to the harbor. We can provide a path to it really quickly. In fact, most of the work, like the work that Shane folks were doing, that's complete. We have some roadway work that's still ongoing. We have some debris work that's still ongoing that you heard about. It's right near the harbor. We have some other safety concerns in and around the harbor. But ultimately, they'll be the one that makes that decision in terms of harbor access. And when they're ready for us, we'll open the path to get there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna do a last call for questions. We have a bunch that were answered in the Q&A box, and actually what we'll do is, you know, those ones that were answered through the Q&A box, I think what we'll do is we'll post them along with the replay of this so people can see the answers, instead of kind of reading through all of them and boring everyone. We'll post them along with this, the video recording of this, as well as the slides like we always do. It'll be on the same page. We'll go ahead and do that. Let's see. Okay, oh, we just got one more question. This is questions talking about, there's a lot of talk about funding, but we don't hear people mentioning how Maui hotels pay significantly lower taxes compared to other islands. These people benefited during FEMA and need to help rebuild. It's more of a comment than a question there. We'll take that. I think Mayor had to drop off, but we'll, I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, but we will get that comment taken down. Thank you. Excuse me. And okay, well, looks like we got through pretty much everything tonight. So I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Again, the replay of this will be on myrecovers.org. Tomorrow, we tend to try to get it up there before noon. And in addition, again, we'll also have these Q&A questions on there as well, so people can see the answers. Again, I know some people are joining us on the television, so they may not be able to see the box with the Q&A on there. But let me see. Yeah, so that, sorry, again, that'll be tomorrow. Look out for that. And I think that was pretty much my only reminders. I want to thank everyone again for attending tonight. I want to thank our panelists for participating tonight, and hope everyone has a good rest of their night. Thank you.